समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
In one of the most path-breaking shifts of geopolitics, Armenia, that has not officially left the Russia-led Security Alliance CSTO, or the Collective Security Treaty Organization, has joined, not just hosted, US, France and Greece in military exercises Eagle Partner 2026, which is a NATO exercise that began on 17th June 2026 and is going to last until 25th June. Why do we in New Delhi need to discuss the shifting alliances in faraway countries situated in South Caucasus? For most Indians, Armenia was once a distant country known through its ancient Christian heritage and a tragic history of genocide and displacement. Yet, over the last few years, Armenia has been discussed quite steadily in India's strategic circles. The biggest reason is that New Delhi has emerged as Yerevan's largest defense supplier in recent years, providing everything from Pinaka's multi-barrel rocket launchers and Akash air defense systems to radars and anti-tank weaponry. Yerevan, in turn, became the first destination for successful exports of Indian weapon platforms, not just subsystems, a feat for India's defense export aspirations. India's growing footprint in Armenia, however, coincided with a period of profound geopolitical transformation in the South Caucasus region. The region is no longer defined or controlled by the familiar Russia-centric order that prevailed after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Instead, a new strategic calculus has been emerging, one shaped by the decline of Russian influence, the rise of Turkey, greater European engagement, and burgeoning American investments. Now, much of the above owes to the remarkable political experiment unfolding under Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, who has served as Prime Minister since 2018. He returned to power just a few days ago with a mandate yearning for geopolitical change. Pashinyan defeated two pro-Russia parties by a comfortable margin, even when he fell short of the mandate required for a constitutional amendment to solidify the peace process that is ongoing with Azerbaijan. And we are going to be returning to this in a while. Coming back, Pashinyan's latest electoral victory, despite military defeat to Azerbaijan, upended the thumb rule of politics and remains crucial not merely for Armenia but for the future of the Caucasus and for countries such as India that have invested strategically in the region. So let's understand this rather unusual political narrative. A journalist by profession, Nikol Pashinyan worked as editor of the Armenian newspaper Haykakan Zamanak and became a prominent opposition figure in his youth. In 2009, he was imprisoned for his role in protests that followed disputed elections, and he was also sentenced to 7 years in prison. His political fortunes, however, continued to rise, and he was elected to parliament for the first time in 2012 and then again in 2017. However, the defining moment for Pashinyan came in 2018 during Armenia's Velvet Revolution, when pro-democracy mass protests against entrenched political elite swept him into power. On 8th of May 2018, backed by a popular movement demanding political change, Pashinyan was elected the Prime Minister of Armenia. Since then, he has become one of the most closely watched leaders in the former Soviet Union, not only because of his domestic reforms, but because he represents something rare in the region: a genuinely competitive democratic political figure capable of repeatedly winning elections without Moscow's endorsement, or shall I say, despite Kremlin's interference. To understand the significance of Pashinyan's victory and current victory, one must first understand Armenia's complicated post-Soviet journey, that is, its statehood and identity. Unlike many Eastern European states, Armenia was not merely a member of the Soviet bloc. It was an integral constituent republic of the Soviet Union itself. The collapse of the USSR in 1991, therefore, created not only a geopolitical vacuum, but also a profound identity crisis. Now, this triggered what historian Suren Zolyan calls a heterogeneous mixture of mythologized ancient history, Soviet and anti-Soviet ideologies, and a quest for a new political symbolism. The political history of independent Armenia can broadly be divided into four phases. The first period, from 1990 to 1998, was characterized by a rejection of everything Soviet and an attempt to draw legitimacy from the short-lived First Republic of Armenia that existed between 1918 and 1920. Yet, there remained a tension between reviving a historical state and creating a new political nation. This phase was defined by the term of Armenia's first president, Levon Ter-Petrosyan. The country then had a presidential system, by the way, which later on changed to prime ministerial. Petrosyan was a pragmatic figure who had clashed with Moscow on the status of Karabakh and took an independent view of Armenia's future. The next phase, from 1998 to 2018, saw a resurgence of pro-Russia leaders. The rise of Pashinyan in 2018 marked the third phase, while subsequent wars with the larger neighbor Azerbaijan and its aftermath ushered the country into the fourth phase. Over time, Armenia witnessed the gradual reconciliation of these narratives. Soviet Armenia came to be viewed as an intermediate stage in the broader story of Armenian statehood rather than an aberration. National myths rooted in ancient Armenian civilization and legendary figures such as Hayek Nahapet were revived, while successive governments sought to define what independent Armenia should represent. So today, under Pashinyan's Fourth Republic, so to say, there emerges a political vision that seeks to move beyond the assumptions that shaped most of Armenia's post-Soviet identity. The debate lies at the heart of Armenia's struggle to adapt to a radically altered regional environment. After defeats in wars, it could not win. So let's come to present times of winning elections after losing wars. The most striking aspect of Pashinyan's latest electoral victory just some days ago is that by conventional logic, it should never have happened. What do I mean? Pashinyan inherited a country deeply entangled in the decades-old conflict over the mountainous region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Under his leadership, Armenia suffered not one, two major military defeats at the hands of Azerbaijan in 2020, when a snap election had followed, and again in 2023. The latter effectively ended Armenian control over Nagorno-Karabakh, a territory that generations of Armenians regarded as both historically and emotionally inseparable from their national identity. Now, in most countries, the loss of territory, particularly one surrounded by historical grievances and national symbolism, would be political suicide. And yet, Pashinyan turned the tide. His civil contract party secured 49.8% of the vote and 61 out of 105 parliamentary seats. While this represented a decline from its previous tally of 71 seats in the snap elections of 2021, it still provided a majority and significantly exceeded pre-election expectations. Most importantly, the result came despite widespread assumptions that military defeat would destroy Pashinyan's political legitimacy. Instead, Pashinyan successfully reframed the national conversation. Rather than promising revenge or territorial recovery, he campaigned on a politically risky proposition. Armenia could not win an endless conflict against a much stronger Azerbaijan and therefore needed normalization, peace, and a new strategic direction, and prosperity for its future generations. In doing so, Armenia may have created a new precedent in democratic politics. Pashinyan persuaded the electorate to prioritize future stability over historical grievance, a rare achievement for a region marred by long-standing territorial conflicts and the trauma of defeat. And with this background, we need to revisit the Russia question. Since its independence in 1991, Armenia had remained deeply integrated into Russia's geopolitical orbit for its security, energy supplies, trade networks, and military planning. Membership in the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union brought benefits, including natural gas from Russia at heavily subsidized rates. Moscow has long served as Armenia's principal security guarantor, and that's how Armenia had been a part of the CSTO. And yet, many Armenians hold the view that Russia failed to uphold its responsibilities when Azerbaijan took over Armenian positions in Nagorno-Karabakh. Pashinyan has long been a critic of Russia's breach of trust and has capitalized on public sentiment by openly and repeatedly questioning the utility of Armenia's dependence on Moscow. What makes the current moment different is not merely Pashinyan's preference for the West, but Russia's diminished capacity due to Putin's geopolitical fiasco. Its prolonged war in Ukraine has weakened Moscow's ability to project influence across its traditional theaters. The consequences can be seen not only in the Caucasus but also in parts of the Middle East, Central Asia, as well as Latin America. The shrinking of Russian influence, so to say, has created a political space that Armenia is now attempting to fill through diversification. And naturally then, the next question is, who are the new players? The European Union has become increasingly engaged with Armenia, culminating in talks on the accession process into the EU at the first ever Armenia-EU summit just last month. Now, such developments would have been difficult to imagine even a few years ago. In Delhi circles, such predictions would have met with smirks by grandfathers of post-Soviet and Russian geopolitics. However, such changes underscore that foreign policy is a function of interests and not narratives. Going ahead, the United States has also become a significant player. The August 2025 peace deal between Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Pashinyan, facilitated by Donald Trump, marked the beginning of Washington's growing engagement in regional diplomacy and connectivity. Subsequent U.S. investments in the TRIP, the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity corridor, the TRIP corridor, have pivoted Armenia to a new era. Now, TRIP is a 43-kilometer transport route through southern Armenia. It physically links mainland Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave and provides unimpeded transit towards Turkey, enhancing the middle corridor and bypassing both Iran and Russia. Managed by private American, European and Turkish consortia, it aims to open up critical mineral supply chains from Central Asia and boost regional trade between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Turkey, meanwhile, has emerged as perhaps the most consequential new variable. Historically viewed through the prism of trauma and distrust, because it was always supporting Azerbaijan, Ankara is now becoming an unavoidable stakeholder in the future of regional connectivity and economic integration. The normalization process between Armenia and Turkey has moved from being politically taboo to becoming a part of mainstream policy discussions. And finally, let's discuss what it means for India. Now, remember that New Delhi-Yerevan defense cooperation grew entirely under Pashinyan, but it was also operating in the specific context of Armenia's long-standing wars. With normalization underway and with no new weapons orders, at least known in the public domain, for India it is time to develop stakes in Armenia's peace, like it had in Armenia's war. A normalized South Caucasus, even though not formally complete, would create opportunities for greater economic connectivity, defense resilience, and diplomatic engagement. Equally important, Armenia's diversification strategy aligns with India's recent rapprochement with Azerbaijan, which has had a special relationship with Pakistan, but is also emerging as a major energy security pillar for Europe and the rest of the world after the crisis in Hormuz. India's strategic calculus in the Caucasus is bound to change, but will be effective only if pursued proactively. And I'll be back to discuss that and more. Stay tuned.